Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be swapping out this gauge cluster for a brand new gauge cluster. I'm going to hold off on showing you what the gauge cluster is, but let's go ahead and get started. So the reason I'm changing out the gauge cluster, and you can see it's blue, you're not going to have that because unless you watch my video on how to change the background color, I'll probably have a link up here for it. And also you can see that I did a forged carbon wrap on the inside to give it, kind of that personal touch. I also have a video on that too. But anyhow, we're going to be changing out this cluster. Now, the reason we're changing out the gauge cluster is because we did this upgrade. The brand new Siaecosys, I think the brand is called Far Driver ND721200 controller. So new controller. And unfortunately, this controller does not work with that gauge cluster. So we do need to change out the gauge cluster to have a working gauge cluster, show our speedometer and mileage and all that other good stuff. So we do need one that is going to be compatible and work. And that's why you see this open, because I did do a video. And if you guys are looking to do that video on how to install this, there will be a link for it. Maybe I'll have a link up here for it if I can. If not, I'll have a link down in the description down below, straight to the video series, because it is I believe it's a 3 or 4 part video series for that on how to install it, how to make the modification bracket and everything. So that video unfortunately is only available for members only, and it's going to be under the supporting my channel category under my membership. So if you look underneath this video, there's going to be a join button. So if you click there, go to support my channel, and there you'll be seeing videos exclusive for members only, and that will be in that category, along with some other videos that I would have there too as well. Other than that, so let's get started on doing it. So you can see that I've already removed the whole paneling, which I'll show you in a second, removing the paneling. So in order to connect it, we do need to get access to this blue cable from the Far Driver. And this blue cable is the digital speedometer reading cable. So we do need to get access to this cable to connect our new speedometer. So let's get to it, and I need to show you what we need to do to remove the speedometer. So first things first, and also the reason that why we need to change it is because even though we're able to turn on the gauge cluster, you can see all this is working just fine. It's not reading the miles per hour. So when we give it throttle, it shows 0 because there's no connection to it. So that's why we need to upgrade this one to one that's going to work. That's the deal with that. So to remove the gauge cluster, we're going to have to remove our headlight, and it's going to be with a 10mm socket on these bolts. There's one on both on each side. So one here on the top on both sides, one here in the bottom on both sides. I've already done that to speed up the process on showing you guys. Let me also go ahead and turn on some more lights here so you guys can see what I'm showing you. After you remove your headlight, let me go ahead and do that carefully. I'm going to put this off to the side. You also want to make sure you have a towel here so you don't scratch the lens of your headlight. Next, you're going to notice that underneath the speedometer here, there's going to be 3 bolts. Go ahead and put this back where it's supposed to be. And the 3 screws with a Phillips screwdriver is going to be one over here, one here in the middle, one over here on the side. So go ahead and remove all 3 of those screws. You're going to trace the cable for the speedometer right here, and it's going to be with the clip. So you're just going to go ahead and pop the clip and unplug it, just like this. Don't mind these cables. These are for a little a voltmeter that I have connected to the bike. You're not going to have that. If you did my video, you'll have it. But if you didn't do my video on how to do that, you won't have that. So once you have it disconnected here, and once you remove the screws for the speedometer, go ahead and remove it. And you're going to see that it's inside that hole. So you're just going to go ahead and undo it from the hole here and take it out. And that's pretty much how you remove the speedometer on the bike. Alrighty guys, so here is the old speedometer right here on our left, and the new one is on the right. Now check it out. Obviously we're going to see it come to life once we connect everything, but there is the speedometer, our gauge cluster. Now also the major difference is look how skinny it is, or how thin it is. This thin compared to, well, this is just the cover, but this is pretty thick over here, but you can see the differences here on that. And then also the back end of it is different as well. Let me go ahead and turn it on. I don't want to scratch this guy, but there's also a lot more information that this gauge cluster is going to show you. Here is the back end of that, and here is the back end of our original, which is like this. Now you're going to notice a big difference is the mounting. The original has one in the middle, two on the side. The new one has two on top and one in the middle. So it's pretty much backwards or opposite of the mounting point. So what you're going to need to do, if you guys know how to 3D print, you're going to have to customize and 3D print your own bracket to make this fit on the e-vader. If you're an old-fashioned guy like me, I don't have a 3D printer. I had to make my own custom bracket out of metal. And I had sheet metal just laying around, and what I did is I made my own bracket, as you can see right here. Obviously, here's the rectangle part that would coincide and match with this rectangle part here. That's the plug, and don't worry, there is the plug right over there. It comes with the gauge cluster. So that's that part there, and I'm gonna attach it up here for mine. And obviously here is my mounting point, or on the bottom of my bracket that I made, which is the mounting points. So it's, you know, the 2 and then the 1, which is pretty much, and that's going to be for the bike. This part is going to be over here, and I already have the holes for it. So let me go ahead and put it so you guys can see it real quick. All right, so I put the bracket already on it, as you can see. So then my mounting part's going to be right here. Since this bracket has so many holes on it, I'm able to, you know, put the holes. So you can see right over there, one there, one over there, and one in the bottom on this part. And then this part is going to go over to the bike over here. And that's going to go over just like this. So once I attach it, there's going to be the bolts right there. But so this is the way I did it, old-fashioned way. But you guys that are into 3D printing, you're going to have to kind of customize your own bracket to adapt this to the e-vader. Wiring and everything is going to be the same all across the board. All right, so let's get started. All right, so now that we already removed the gauge cluster, now we have to put some bolts to attach our new bracket. So the bolts that I had laying around is pretty much going to be the same bolts that I used to remove the cage from when I bought when I had got the e-vader, it came in the cage. So in all these bolts I had to remove to get it out of the cage. So that's going to repurpose it, and I knew that I would use it at one point, and here I am. I'm going to use them now. So these are the bolts. These are going to be like a 10mm style thing, but you guys could use whatever you're going to use to attach your bracket to the e-vader. There's 3 mounting points, one here, here, and here. So you can see it better if I point it down right there. So 1, 2, 3. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push this through the bottom. I'm going to push it right through the grommet. So let me go ahead and put the camera back down and then show you. So it's right there. I'm just going to push it down, from the bottom, and kind of push it up to the top there. Probably give it a little bit of a turn to kind of get it there. So that way that the bolt is kind of sticking up. You could do it with the bolt sticking down as well if you like. It's, you know, really up to you how you want to do it. This is the way I'm going to do it. That way I could have the bolts kind of hidden once I tighten up everything. All right, so let me go ahead and do that. And there, and then this guy, final one. I'm going to push this one through. All right, so now that I got my bolts already set, as you can see, everything is all set up right there. All right, so next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on this side right over here, and I'm going to attach my gauge cluster to the bracket first. Now the reason is because, see, my camera can't even go that high. I'm gonna have to figure out something. But the reason is because once we get this bracket onto the bike, it might be a little bit more difficult to actually, you know, flip it over and put the screws in. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my bracket right here. I'm gonna grab my screws, and I'll probably put a little bit of some thread lock on my screws, which I'm using these little guys right here. It's going to be with a 4mm Allen key, and I'm gonna put a little bit of thread lock on them, and then put my bracket. So here's my bracket. Here's my gauge cluster. So I'm gonna go ahead and put it there. As you can see, I already have it matched up with to allow for the mounting harness. So while I do that, you guys do the same with your particular bracket that you guys made, and go ahead and attach it. Alrighty guys, I already attached my speedometer to my custom bracket. Now in the kit, you're gonna notice that it's gonna come with this rewiring harness, which we are gonna do, but don't worry, I'm gonna guide you step by step on how to do it. And also you're going to need a specialty tool to be able to get the pins out of the original connector. So we are going to need to do that as well. So it does also come with its own pins. So if you ever needed to redo a wire or whatnot, or something happens, you could actually redo it with the pin set up here. Here is the bracket. So as you can see, I already have it connected. So I'm going to go ahead and probably put the connector in last because I already have my slot for it. So all I have to do is just pretty much, it only goes in one way. As you can see, it has that little clip, and that clip coincides with that. Well, there goes my camera. Clip goes with this little slot right here inside of the gauge cluster. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see there is a little slot here, and this just kind of goes in that way. After that, you just put the boot to kind of cover the whole connector. All right, so now let's get this bracket over to the bike and get that part installed. So now for this part, if you like, you could also put some thread lock on the bolts that you're using. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of thread lock on each bolt. It doesn't hurt to do so, even though the bike doesn't really vibrate because there is no motor. It's all electric, but you never know. So go ahead and put a little bit on each thread of the nut or the bolt. Also wanted to show you real guys that I also decided to use the spacers that came off of the original one. I decided to go ahead and reuse them on this one as well. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and mount the bracket. Okay, there we go, there and there. Go ahead and get the nut, and then just put that down like so. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten down all of the bolts here. Just going to go ahead and put this one, and so you guys do the same for your application on whichever bracket you decide to make. Now, the reason I didn't show you guys about me making this bracket is because everybody has their own way, and pretty much what I'm doing is kind of like, I would say, the very old-fashioned way of making a mounting bracket. That's why I didn't really show you on how to make it. So just kind of be creative on the way you make yours. I needed to kind of, since this gauge cluster is so thin, that's why it has that big gap like this. Because with the original gauge cluster, you could see on how fat it is. Look how fat this is. You know, so therefore I didn't need it. So, but this kind of fills that void. You know, you can see how fat this one is, and that's how it attaches. So you can see, and it's almost pretty much the same height, a little bit lower, but pretty much there. So that's that. That's the reason I made that bracket that way, to kind of fill that void. So okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and tighten down these bolts, and like I said, the way whatever bracket you guys did, do the same. All right, already got all the bolts nice and sturdy. Now this thing is not going anywhere. All right, so next we're gonna go ahead and plug in our wire harness. And like I said, it only goes in one direction. You cannot mess it up. If you happen to put it the wrong way, you'll notice right away. So let's go ahead and flip it. All right, so let's go ahead and get that in there. All right, and then if need be, go ahead and pull the boot down so you get more of the connector exposed. Go ahead and then slide it in. Make sure that you're careful when installing it. Once you got it on there, go ahead and push it in until you hear the click. All right, there is the click. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get the rubber boot and then just get it over that connector, like so. There you go. All right, so now we have left to do is we just need to get this wired correctly. So we are gonna wire it directly to our original cabling here of our e-vader, except you're going to notice that this particular cable is not going to fit with this plug, because the one from not this plug, this plug, this one, if you notice that on the gauge, because it's going to have these two, this one with the two cables, sorry about that guys, this one with the two cables. Now that's going to be for an analog kind of display. So unfortunately, I mean fortunately, I wouldn't say unfortunately, but fortunately our bike is electric and it has more, you know, than analog, so we won't be using this. So don't worry about this one. The one all the cables is going to be the one that we're going to be using and tapping into. So you're going to see that from the gauge cluster, it's a male with female ends, and same thing with the one coming from the e-vader. So we are going to have to change out the one from the e-vader to be able to connect with this one. That's why it comes with that packaging for this part. So I would say, if anything, I would probably go with swapping out. Oh, here we go. Let's see if this would even fit. Yeah, so even this one, if you were to convert it, you would have to convert both, and I don't see the need to actually do that when we could just convert this one, and we'll convert it from the e-vader to go into the gauge cluster. So we're going to be using this one with the little arm, and that's gonna, you know, work out with the like this. So this one we're gonna get from the package, and take out all the wires from the e-vader, and I'll show you where each wire is gonna go. So let's get started with that part. All right, so to make life easier, because we are gonna be popping out the terminals from the e-vader here. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Okay, so we're gonna be popping out the terminals wires from the connector from the e-vader to make life simple. Be a good idea to get a little key set like this. I'll have a link of this particular key set, and meaning it has like adapters for everything to take out every possible connector you could think of. I'll have a link for this down below of this video, so you guys could purchase the same. And it makes, trust me, it makes life on how to get these things out. So we're gonna be using this guy. As you can see, it looks like this. All right, so to use it, we're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna try to get some really good close-ups, is that we're gonna stick it into one of the terminals, and what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be popping out the cable. So if I were to stick it in here, I'm gonna put it onto the top, kind of wiggle it in there, and all we're doing is we're pushing a little tab that's inside down, so we could be able to pull out the cable. So let me go ahead and do that one, and as you can see how easy that was. Bam, look at that, guys. Look how easy and fast that actually came out, just like that. All right, so we're gonna be doing each cable one by one. So we are gonna have to clip the cable in to allow for a different type of plug. So we're gonna need wire snips, wire strippers, and then the, recrimp the connector that's gonna look like almost like this one, but a male version of it. Okay, so we're back at the bench here. So here's the connectors that we're gonna be using. These are the males. And obviously this is the plug that we're going to be using it for. So we are going to be splicing the cable off of the OEM from the e-vader, and then we're going to slip the cable in here and crimp it down with our crimp tool. So let's go back over to the bike, and since we already took out the orange cable here, and as you can see from the e-vader, it's actually a female. You can see that it's a hole right there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut it, splice it, and then put the new connector on. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, so let's go through this together. I'm gonna do it with you guys together, one by one, so we don't skip a beat. All right, so it's up to you, really. I mean, if you guys want to go ahead, and since we're not really going to be using these connectors, I may use it because I do a lot of wiring, so I'm gonna go ahead and maybe just cut a little bit away from this. But if you don't do any wiring, you can go ahead and just crimp it right at the edge. I mean, clip it from at the edge right there. But for me, like I said, I do a lot of wiring. So I'm gonna probably go up to there and cut it. Okay, so now that we cut this particular one off, next we're gonna be using our wire splicers. So let's go ahead and do that. And if you guys need a little bit more wiggle room on the cabling, go ahead. There's this little kind of jacket or covering. Just go ahead and un-Velcro it. You could un-Velcro it, and that will expose a lot more of the wires. Therefore, you could get a little bit more access on pulling the cable or whatnot. All right, so now I got the cable out. I'm gonna go ahead and strip a little bit. We don't have to strip that much. Okay, so I already gone ahead and stripped the cabling. Maybe zoom in a little bit better for you guys. And this is pretty much all you need to strip of the cable, so that a little bit of amount. Once you do that, it's gonna go ahead and twist the end of the cable. Let's go ahead and twist it until it's nice and tight. All right, so now we are going to grab our male spade connector, which is here. They're all in this little tree. So we're gonna go ahead and just kind of use our snips to cut one out. Go ahead and right there. So get it without getting other ones, even though we have to cut all of them. We're gonna be using like 6 of them. All right, cut one out. Put it off to the side. Okay, so you're gonna notice that on the little spade connector, I'm not sure if you can even focus it there. You can see it's open here at the end right here, and that's where we're gonna slide our cable. Then we're gonna use our special crimping tool to crimp or close this end onto the wire. I'll try to do my best on action. Then there is that little part that the metal sticking out, and that's gonna be the clip that's gonna lock this particular spade connector inside of the plastic part. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this down. I'll try to do the best I can on doing it on camera so you guys can see it as I do it. Okay, so let's go ahead and put it on here. Gonna put it in like so. It's probably about there. should be good. About there. And try to do the best I can on crimping this. It's gonna be a little bit hard to get it onto the focusing part, but yeah. And I'm not even sure if my crimp connector is actually going to do it, because as you could see, the smallest is a little bit bigger than this thing. Alright, so let's see how well I can do it. If not, I might have to go the old-fashioned way and use my pliers to kind of crimp everything down. Yep, it didn't really work out, guys. So this, obviously, my crimp tool is way too big for this particular style of connector, so I'm going to have to go a different route. I'm probably going to use my needle nose pliers to like kind of just fold these little metal clasps onto this part and tighten everything down. So let me go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you how it looks like. Okay, so now that we already crimp it, as you could see, it's the best I could do with the tools I have. I know you guys are going to roast me in the comments, but again, you got to work with what you got. All right, so we're going to grab this is from the new gauge cluster, obviously. We're going to pull this one, the two, we're going to put that off the side. I'll probably cap this off with some heat shrink tubing or some electrical tape, because obviously we're not going to use that. All right, so the orange is going to go with the orange from the new gauge cluster, which is right here. Sorry for interrupting the video so abruptly, especially on a good part of the video, but I wanted to keep the video short, so stay tuned for the next one as we continue on installing the gauge cluster.